Hi, everyone. Welcome to Marketing Conversations. Today, I'm here with Ian Cantle of Outsourced Marketing Incorporated out of Toronto, Canada. And I've known Ian for what now, 5.5 years since you joined
That's
the Duct
right.
Tape Network.
Yeah.
And we got to know each other in person too when we were able to do that. And sorry that you're still on lockdown right now, but I feel like we are together here today. So Ian runs a digital marketing agency, and I've invited Ian to join me today to talk about what some of the options are for remodeling contractors and those in the trades to actually work with agencies, break down what some of those agencies are and how you can find one that works for you. So of course, in all of this, you need to own your marketing. And when I read Ian's book, and I'll share it in a little bit, I was very happy to see that he acknowledged that. And that's the importance of owning your strategy and your plan and really making an agency a partner. One of the other reasons that Ian and I are going to talk about this is because in preparation for a presentation at the national level for NARI, the National Association of the Remodeling Industry, I spoke a couple of weeks ago at their annual conference on how to get marketing done in your remodeling company. And so we had talked about agencies briefly, and I'm happy to see that we're both on the same page about this. And so, Ian, let's get into it and break some of this agency stuff down.
Awesome.
So,
I'm so glad to be here, Ann.
yeah. Oh, and one thing I wanted to add, this word hybrid. As I put together my presentation and then an ebook about it, I realized that a hybrid solution is probably the best. And oftentimes it includes an agency. Can you tell me why, in your opinion, you think working with a marketing agency makes a lot of sense for just small businesses in general, or marketing or remodeling companies specifically?
Yeah, I'd love to. And also just to give a little bit of background, my experience isn't just in being an agency. My experience is being in purchasing from agencies in the past when I was in the corporate world. And so part of why I believe most small businesses need to work with an agency is actually based on that, but with some caveats as well. So why I would say most businesses need to work with an agency, and especially remodelers, is because what often happens with any small business, but especially in the trades, is that a lot of businesses chase after the latest shiny object. So they hear that social media is important, they jump on social media. They hear that email marketing, as much as they hate it, is important, they jump on email marketing. But there's no overarching strategy involved. And so a really good agency is going to guide the business first in, here's a marketing strategy. First, we're going to understand your business, what your goals are, where the market is, so understanding who your key competitors are and what they're doing, and then they'll create a plan for you. And that plan is the filter by which you can then choose, what marketing to do, when to do it, how to do it, and how to measure the success of that marketing. And why an agency is really good at this is because they're a third party that can objectively look at it and not have any, historical skin in the game, where a lot of business owners will say, well, I tried this or I did that, but maybe they didn't try it properly or do it well, or maybe they had multiple vendors working on their marketing without a cohesive plan that guided all of those people.
Yeah, no, thank you. That makes so much sense. Now, in your ebook, and I want to share it here, you talk about two different types of marketing agencies. So tell me a little bit about those.
Yeah, so how I've broken it down is that you have full service integrated agencies, and by that I mean they can pretty much do everything for you from a marketing standpoint, from strategy, branding, email marketing, social media. They're a one-stop shop, and they can deliver everything you want. And so as such, they tend to be a little bit more expensive. They tend to have a lot of in-house staff. And so those tend to be not the best choices for small businesses until you get very large. And usually large businesses use these integrated marketing agencies like Coca-Cola. In fact, some of them actually build their own integrated marketing agencies in order to serve themselves and other clients. The other option is a specialized marketing agency. And so those can come in all sorts of shapes and flavors, from branding and creative agencies, direct marketing agencies, digital marketing agencies, social media agencies, SEO agencies, and the list goes on, because if you start to slice and dice marketing, you can be a specialist in that area, and you can be a marketing agency. And what's interesting about those is that there's always a kind of a continuum where they have their core competency, but then they also say they can do these other periphery type services. So an SEO agency is going to say, we can build great websites and we can do social media. And what you find is they may be very strong in one area, but not very strong in others.
Yeah. Before we go on, because I do want to dive into that for sure. But so question for you. So our Duct Tape marketing fellow consultants / agencies, a couple of years ago, because, the development and the progression of digital marketing really made it such that a company can't do they can't do all the technical things that they need to have done, because your online presence is so important. So people in the network then started going more towards that agency concept. And for me, that's where I went, I didn't want to do the marketing for everybody. And I was going to be basically orchestrating a lot of things. But where do you think a lot of our fellow Duct Tape network consultants are in, as far as are they specialized agencies with the strategy? What do you think?
Yeah, I think because Duct Tape marketing starts with strategy first. That's the approach, that's the philosophy, that regardless of where they came from, that's going to be the starting point. And then they'll gravitate toward whatever they know best. Now, the interesting thing with Duct Tape is that a lot of them become either highly specialized as consultants, so bringing that strategic mindset, like yourself, right? Like you bring a strategic mindset, you coach businesses on how to do marketing well. You can build the plans to help them implement it. And then there's other people that then take they have some of that, but they're more interested in the implementation. So the strategy plus the implementation. And so that's where my agency has actually landed. And then there's kind of a whole continuum between there of where people land. And which actually leads nicely into, you had mentioned a hybrid agency, and that's really how I see what my agency is. We're not a giant agency. We're a very, we use the term a dynamic or elastic agency, in that we keep our costs down by having core staff who manage and deliver the strategy. We do a lot of the work related to where our own individual core competencies in that core team are, like SEO, web development, Google Ads. But then we have our own special teams that we bring in as we need them. So these are vetted people that we work with. And so what that does is keep costs down, but gives us the ability to deliver across the board. So a little different than what the big agencies do.
Yeah. Well, and I think it makes sense to, the way that I broke it down in my presentation, I kept it rather simple. I talked about full service agencies and digital agencies, mostly because that's what, that's the way I thought it was going to be most consumable and understandable for, for that presentation. I was talking about a lot of different ways to get marketing done, and to understand that a full service agency, it does cost a lot. And that kind of reminds me of that like outsourced CMO, chief marketing officer, where they're looking at all of your marketing and not just, one area. So, and that's where I think that a lot of people fall prey to, a lot of small businesses just fall prey to thinking that, I've got an agency and it's a very specialized agency doing a tactic or two. And that agency often makes them feel like, I've got marketing done because I'm doing SEO. and when in reality, they're not looking at marketing as a whole. And that's where I think that's part of the difference. Like if you know, how to tell a good agency from a not so good agency probably is that acknowledgement of, hey, this is where we're doing this, but keep in mind that there are some offline tactics as well that you should be thinking about.
Yeah.
And a lot of agencies just don't think strategically, right? They think tactically.
Well, and I love what you said there, Ann, because the truth is, and this is where if the listeners don't know what the Duct Tape marketing system is, it is a super powerful, proven, systematic approach to marketing that basically creates a force multiplier in all of your marketing by making, like, imagine, I used to use the analogy of, there used to be those guys on, I don't know if it was Ed Sullivan or Johnny Carson or whatever.
How old are you?
I know. I was very young at the time, like an embryo, but they used to spin those plates, right? And they'd run from one end of the place, start spinning a plate, and then they'd have to come back and keep those plates going. And then eventually the plates would fall. And that's, to me, what siloed marketing approaches using multiple vendors is kind of like. Whereas the Duct Tape marketing system, when you take a systematic approach, you're getting all of the, now to change the analogy to like an engine, you're actually bringing the gears of the engine together to work simultaneously to drive you to your destination. If those gears are not turning in unison, you actually don't go where you want to go as fast as you could. But when they're working together, it actually makes things work. You commented on SEO, like an SEO company. But if an SEO company is not creating content, it's not a great SEO company, because SEO requires writers, blog posts, good research. Like there's a whole bunch of elements that work together. And then,
And to add to that, then the content itself really needs to highlight what makes your company special. That is what sets you apart from your competition. And the way we look at it using the Duct Tape methodology is it's often how you deliver your service. And it's, I show an example in a class that I just gave yesterday about, here's a good review and here's a not so good review, a bad review. And the good review pointed out, I just looked online for something and did a screenshot, and it pointed out what niche the company is in and the special service that the person appreciated. And it was about how they made making decisions easy for them as they were getting ready to sell their house. Whereas the really plain generic review was talking about how so-and-so did an outstanding job. And they used the word outstanding twice, all in caps. And as I explained, you can take that review and kind of slap it on almost any business. And same thing with content. If your content doesn't set you apart, then you're missing something. And to know what sets you apart basically is the strategy. You've got to do some strategic planning, marketing planning, know who your ideal clients are, your ideal projects. What do people appreciate about the way you provide service? And it's a little complicated, isn't it, for small companies to figure this out?
It is, yeah. And again, it is helpful to have a strategically minded third party come in and be able to look dispassionately and objectively, not only at you, but at your competition. You were talking about the reviews and the core difference that you have compared, the differentiation. One of the things that you do and I do when we go through our strategic process with clients is we actually look at, here's your website, here's what it's saying to people. Here's your three top competitors' websites. Here's what they're saying to people. And in a lot of industries, I'm sure you find this as well, Ann, that all of the websites are very vanilla. Like they're not saying this is what makes us special. And so pulling out that core difference that really highlights, when you work with us, this is what you're going to feel like. This is what you're going to get from us, because you're trying to connect the mind with the emotions, and that core difference is vital.
Yeah. And, I want to add something to that, is that so many remodelers' websites look the same because now the expectation is that that you have high quality professional images on your website. And quite honestly, what makes one kitchen different from another, that's somebody's style. And, yes, maybe there's I know architects, certain designers, they will focus on a certain style or aesthetic, but remodeling contractors often can build anything, and maybe they do design a certain style, like a farmhouse style, if they're a design build contractor, or a certain modern, like here they have a Pacific Northwest style here. Anyway, but a lot of those photos are not what differentiates you. The photos look fantastic, but the photos could be from any website. And so it's actually what you communicate on that homepage and how it's structured to actually bring somebody in so they take that next step, because we could go off on a whole tangent here. But anyway, I'll just wrap it up to say on that one that, yeah, you have to, your website is one of the more important assets in your marketing, that you do need to absolutely communicate what makes you different, because when somebody after they've found out about your company, right, they need to be able to go to your website, and you need to bring them along to taking that next action.
That's right.
So where do you find agencies? How do you think someone should go about it?
Under mossy rocks, you lift them up and look at those cute little agencies. No, I mean, there's a few ways to find a good agency. Obviously, the first is talking to other people you trust in the industry and ask them about their experience. That's always a fantastic way to, at least, I would say there's a vetting process, right? You can find the agencies, but then you need a structured vetting process as a remodeler to really be able to compare apples for apples with whom you're talking with. But I would say Googling is not a bad way to find them, because you do want to check out their websites. You want to look at their reviews, obviously, or maybe it's not as obvious, but look at their reviews and find out what real customers are saying about their experience, good and bad. Look at both the positive and the negative, if there's both. You can also, if there's a philosophy of marketing that you like, we're deep into the duct tape marketing system because we believe it's a very good way to do marketing. And if you believe something like that, then you can look on, the duct tape marketing website and find a consultant that follows that philosophy.
Yeah. Two other things I wanted to add. You got me thinking. So not just talking to your colleagues. And remember, these can be people that from a local builders association, or, at the national level with NARI or NAHB or something. But I was also thinking what you can do is you can look up remodelers and just check out some of the websites and get a sense of what looking for some robust content and good structure and things like that. And I suppose you could reach out to those companies and ask them, how do you get marketing done? Do you use an agency? And if so, which one? And add that to your list. So in your book, let me see, I'm going to pull up the page and then I will share my screen. Sure. In your book, you do talk about having basically a list of how to choose the agency. It's like the 7 steps, right?
It is.
I've got that up here. Okay, here we go. Let's share the screen again. And okay, there we go. So tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so I tried to really emphasize the first point there by saying skip this step at your own peril. And the reason I say that is because the whole process of finding an agency flows out of what your goals and objectives are. And if you don't know what your goals and objectives are truly, and being tough on yourself and being very blunt with yourself about, if I invest in marketing, I want it to produce X. And it has to be realistic, of course, but it can be a stretch goal as well. And so even if you get a referral from somebody, you absolutely have to know why you're looking for an agency. What do you think about that, Ann?
Absolutely. And you know what? One thing I just jotted down a note, don't be sold to. This is, you're going to be investing thousands of dollars into working with an agency. And so you don't want to, you don't want, this is not something to be taken lightly. And sadly, when I talk to remodelers and my clients, when they come to me, they bring baggage of, how they're currently getting marketing done. And sometimes the decisions that they've made, obviously have been made before I come on the scene, but it's like, somebody came, small business owners, we get sold, people are reaching out to us all the time. Now I'm getting it through LinkedIn, and people are telling me that I need to be working with their agency because they can be doing websites for my clients, things like that. And really, I actually talk about that in my presentation. It was about, believing salespeople, and, you, as a company, you need to be your own advocate. And you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to the company and the employees, right? To be choosing wisely, because it is such a big investment. And not only is it an investment, but it's a path that you're taking. You're going down a path with that engine, and that engine might not be a very good engine for you. We could go on that analogy, but it could be taking you in the wrong direction. If you don't know what your goals are, you don't know where you're going. And so that also, once you know your goals, right, then you can, I'll stop sharing for a second here, but once you know your goals, you can, then you can tie your marketing all to, you can measure it more effectively. Is that getting us closer to our goal?
And I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I want to take a step back and just talk about that a little bit more with you, please, for your listeners' sake. One of the things that I think is overlooked in this whole process, oftentimes, because businesses are so quick, they by the time they want to make a decision and they want to find an agency, oftentimes the pain is so great that they feel they have to fill the gap so quickly. But what you said is so true. The decision is a large one. Not that should paralyze you, because it's a large decision. But it's an investment. It's a partnership when done right. And it's all about fit. And if you make the decision poorly, not only could it hurt your sales, but it's lost opportunities. So a lot of times they're like, well, we're not growing as fast as we thought we could. But what does that mean? Not only are you losing sales and you're losing opportunities, you're actually relinquishing those. And I hope this rankles listeners. You're relinquishing those sales and opportunities to your competitors. And that should rankle us all as business owners, that this is an important decision, and we want to grow our businesses as strong and as quickly as possible, because it's in our best interest as business owners, as well as our the people that work with us and our customers, if we believe we do the job the best there is, right? Which most business owners do.
Exactly. And quite honestly, for remodeling contractors and other companies in the trades, finding employees is such an important, it's really difficult at this point. So where I'm going with this is there's two parts of it, is that the first one is that growing your company. I've got one client now, she wants to, to step it up and add another crew. And to do that, she's got to have the leads coming in. You have to have that steady stream of qualified leads. And so, if you have the wrong engine, or you're going in the wrong direction, and you've got those lost opportunities and stuff, you're not making the most of it. You're making it harder on yourself to get to where you want to go. And we already know it's hard to find qualified people to work in your company. So in that way, that, you want to make it easier for yourself. So taking the time up front to find that right fit. And really, I feel like with my clients, I'm a partner with them. And obviously you do as well. Because, the way I look at it too, is that I've got the responsibility of, as a marketing person, and you as an agency, to put my clients' interests first. And I think that if I had a list in front of me of what are some of those characteristics of a good agency relationship, that would be one of them. The other thing about finding employees is that has to be part of marketing, especially in the trades. You're not just marketing to find ideal clients and ideal projects, but also fantastic employees that are a good fit with the company. And so, yeah, there's a lot to that. We could talk about that another time, but yeah. So what do you think then, moving on, what do you think are some of those, hallmarks of good agency relationships? Like what should you be going for? So one of them, I think, to start us off then would be an agency that seems to have your best interest at heart.
Yeah. And you have to be pretty, you have to be a detective in this process, because everybody says the same things. In fact, it's quite frustrating as an agency owner to be in competition with other agencies and hear from the prospect, oh, these guys said the exact same thing. And then, actually giving them the tools to dissect that and make sure that they're comparing apples to apples. Because a lot of it, especially to business owners who may not understand the lingo or may not understand what an actual deliverable is in some of these areas, it is really important to really ask probing questions. But as far as characteristics, the personality, I think, is important. You need to, we talked about fit, and fit is really important because, as you said, you become a partner or an extension to the business. In effect, you're becoming, an outsourced member of the team, and you need to make sure that team member fits with your personality, because not everybody thinks the same way. Not everybody can communicate the way you want them to. And have they delivered what they promised to other clients, I think is a really important point as well.
Absolutely. Those references. So, in that process, I think that, like your 7 steps says, and I'm not going to pull it back up, but to look at that, and we will make sure that people know how to get your ebook, but, taking the time, being methodical with all of this, and, putting it in whether it's a spreadsheet or a grid of some sort, and asking those questions, be that annoying prospective client, because I've got to think that if it's the wrong fit, you're going to rub them the wrong way, and they're not going to, you'll see from their reaction, whether you're bothering them and whether they're willing to, and whether it's within what they normally do with their clients, to say provide reports that go beyond just a line graph or something, and cost per click or whatever it is on it, and it actually provides you some deeper information. And if you're asking for more and they go, oh, we don't need that, or no, whatever their response is, you'll know, because if they do provide robust reports, for example, they'll say, sure, we'll show you something, right? And they will offer to allow you to speak to one of their clients, getting a reference.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, I learned when I was in the corporate world and I was hiring team members, I learned early on that it was really important, and it's applicable to this discussion. I learned early on that having a spreadsheet or some sort of criteria that was equal for every single person I was interviewing for that position was vital, because what happens, and taking very good notes, because what happens is when you get to the 4th agency, 3rd agency, whatever it is that you're interviewing, you forgot, actually, you have a feeling, you get a sense, but unless you have a photographic memory, you're not going to remember exactly what they said. And the way you ask questions, because you're going to be continually educated through this whole process of hiring an agency by the agencies themselves, that you need to make sure that the way you ask the question is even the same throughout, because that frames the responses as well. So I think a criteria is really important.
Absolutely. And I would actually say, as you learn more, as you go along through that process, that you actually, no, I love it. That should be like the ding, ding, ding. He said the magic word, the Canadian word. But basically, that if you do learn enough and you're asking more educated questions on agencies that you're talking to later, you may have to circle back around to agency number 1 and say, hey, I've got a couple more questions because I've learned a couple things. And that way, then you can compare apples to apples, right?
Yeah. And as you said, even their reaction to you asking more questions is actually very insightful, how they react to that.
Yeah.
Do they get annoyed? Do they, it's an important thing to do, is to make sure that you ask those questions.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk for a second about geography. I mean,
Mhm.
if there's something that we've learned since March 2020 is that we can do business virtually. And I know a
Mhm.
lot of agencies do business virtually anyway. They've got clients all over. But what do you think, from for the remodeling companies, do you think that it really matters the geography of the agency, or does it matter more, do they have other companies that they're working with in the remodeling industry?
Yeah, I would say my first reaction is that geography has no bearing whatsoever. Although I would put the caveat that if you're a North American business, whether you're in the US, Canada, wherever you are, I don't think it matters what state or province you're in, but if you're in North America, you should work with a North American company. I think
Mhm.
that's true because I see lots of failings of working, with an Indian business or, somewhere else in the world, Philippine, whatever
Mhm.
it may be. There's just inherent challenges that way. But as far as geography in North America, no, in fact, I think sometimes business owners put up a barrier to finding the best agency fit because they say they have to be local because I want to know where they live in case they screw up or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I've heard that argument before. And to me, it's much more like if I have a heart problem and I need a cardiac,
Mm.
the best
Yeah.
cardiac surgeon in the world, I'm going to go to that person. I'm not going to say, well, they need to be in the town that I live in.
Yeah, that's pretty
uh,
absurd, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially since the actual delivery of the service can be virtual now.
Yeah.
We serve clients all across North America, and it doesn't matter where we are, especially now that communication has become so easy through Zoom or whatever platforms are out there.
Yeah.
And business owners feel more comfortable with that too.
Yeah, I would say, and I know that we don't have to go into like who all your agency serves, but you do serve multiple industries, but you do have experience in working with companies in the trades. And
Yes.
so I think that that is kind of a minimum in my book, in my mind, is that you don't want to be the first in your industry for that agency, because I did actually, I saw that recently with a client of mine where they had worked with somebody, and that person had absolutely missed his, well, actually mostly missed what his core difference was,
Mm.
because she thought, having great craftsmanship was enough. But you know what? That's an expectation of your remodeling contractor, and so she missed a big part of it, by not knowing the industry. So,
Yeah, and
um,
I agree with that, Anne. I think there can be inherent weaknesses in hiring a business that only deals in your industry, because I've
yeah.
seen that too, where they get so
Mhm.
stuck in a mindset that they actually don't think beyond that.
Yeah.
Because yeah, but I agree. Like I think there are inherent strengths for sure in businesses that serve particular niches, um, because it gets them quicker from point A to point B oftentimes because they know, in the SEO world, they know at least what the base keywords are. There may be unique ones according to the services the company provides or the
True.
location they're in. But yeah, it's like fast tracking sometimes, which is nice.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. You got me thinking about, though, I want to go back to, like agencies will often, like you said, have their core of what they're
Mhm.
good at. And then they will often kind of, I don't know that I'd call it bolting on, but by hiring or giving work to subcontractors.
Mhm.
That seems to be fraught with risk if you don't, if as a company, evaluating an agency, you do need to address that with the agency, right? And ask some questions about, you know, what questions would you recommend somebody asking an agency? I've got a couple in my mind. I'd love to know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always fair as one of these flexible businesses, as I was talking
Mhm.
about, flexible agency. I hate that question. I hate being asked that because
Sorry.
it's it's no. But what I was going to say was as a business owner, I would absolutely ask that question. I mean, I ask that of people I work with because I want to understand who's in-house, who's not in-house. It doesn't mean I won't use them if not everybody is in-house, because again, from my business standpoint, as long as I'm using trusted people that I work with all the time, they can be subcontracted people, like a virtual assistant. I have a virtual assistant that is the best writer editor I've ever seen. And why wouldn't I use her, right? So just as an example, but yeah, I think it's a very fair question. Who's on your team? If it's one of these kind of hybrid or stretchy models of a business that includes virtual people, what does that look like? And I think the most important question that I would ask is, who is my point of contact? Because what often happens, and this is the crazy thing about big agencies, is that the people that sell to you, the people you fall in love with, the experts, are never the people that actually are your point of contact. They give you a junior account manager, or they often call them account executives, even though they've only been doing it for a year. But that's your point of contact, and they don't have the experience to talk real business with you oftentimes.
So should you ask, as a remodeler, should you ask to meet that person that they would assign to your account? Because I've got to think that that chemistry and having a comfort level with their ability to understand your company and where you're going with the company, and to have that communication would be really important. Is that reasonable?
That's totally reasonable. Yeah. If you're, and in the, just to give you an idea, like in the big agencies, they do introduce you to the person in those initial meetings where you sign the dotted line, but those people don't talk a lot, except they're very friendly usually. But yeah, you need to really vet those people as well, because your point of contact is the person that is actually serving you. They may not be doing all the work in the back end, but they are the one that is serving you and answering and being responsible to you. So that's really important. So
that in a way, they're the point, they're the liaison between you and whoever else is doing the work.
Yeah.
So let's go in-house for a second here, because I feel like I'm on a soapbox lately. We know John Jantz has been talking about owning your marketing, and that's something that I think in parallel, I had been coming to that conclusion, and I've staked my business on that in a way, that I coach the in-house marketing person. Even if there's somebody, any company, if you're working with an agency, you need to have a point of contact as well. Right. And oftentimes it may fall on the owner of the company, which may not be the best fit. So what recommendation would you have for a remodeling company about who should be that point of contact? What should that point of contact be doing? At what level of detail, and what makes for, what's a really good example of a working relationship?
Yeah, and it's a challenging question to answer, only because every business is unique, every circumstance is unique. I'll answer it in one way, which is actually talking about how it doesn't work sometimes, and that's the most common way that small businesses, whether it's remodeling or another type of business, hires marketers, is because they feel that they need to control it, and so they often start where they can manage it in a budgetary standpoint, which is a junior marketing coordinator of some kind. The challenge with that is that people at that level rarely have any experience or very little experience, especially in the core areas that you need in order to start moving the lever to grow your sales and to get you to your goals. But those people can be very valuable to a business if they have someone like you, Anne, where you can provide the strategy, you can oversee it, and you can almost be a liaison between that person and the business owner, because the business owner doesn't necessarily even know what marketing needs to be done, even if you develop a plan for them. To manage an in-house person is very hard. So that's kind of one of the neat things too about the Duct Tape marketing system, and the way the coaching is kind of built into it, that they've even built out a marketing manager program, coaching program
Right.
to
Yeah.
help make sure that if you do have an internal person, regardless of what level they're at, this
Mhm.
actually gives a fantastic baseline so that they understand, first of all, what is a marketing strategy. Even if they
Mhm.
went to school and they kind of understand it in theory, it's very practical.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that answers the question the way you wanted, but
Not
I,
exactly,
I,
but that's okay. You know what?
but
We're talking.
there's a
Yeah.
time, right? There's a
Mhm.
time in the growth of a business where you do have to start having more control over your business from a marketing standpoint, because it's so vital to your growth.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
you have to determine, again, it's kind of building out that criteria list again, which someone like yourself can help with. And that's, what are your goals and objectives for this role? How is it going to help you reach your bigger goals and objectives?
Yeah.
And what are they going to be doing? Because I've often seen junior marketers end up being, I don't know, do people still photocopy? But I've seen
Mhm.
them picking and packing inventory. I've seen them doing all sorts of things
Yeah.
that are not marketing related. And it's a little bit sad, because if you're not going to use them for marketing, invest in the people that will do the marketing for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but a lot of companies, they know that they need to be using an agency. They haven't formalized anything in their marketing.
Mhm.
um, and they know they're not ready to hire somebody internally. But they do know that they need somebody. I want to give a little guidance on what a company should do. So basically, they do need to manage that relationship, and it may very well be that it's the owner and somebody in the company that doesn't, that has a marketing hat that they put on sometimes, and it
Mhm.
may not even be in their official job description. It's kind of, because a lot of these companies are very dynamic, and they're growing, and they don't have the budget. The budget for staff needs to go to other places before marketing. And so maybe it's the office manager, but it's somebody, basically, it's kind of I don't want to say tag team approach, but I think it's the owner and another person in the company, so that they can make sure they're hitting those points that they're supposed to hit, like being an advocate, making sure they're asking the tough questions. How does this relate to this goal of ours? How are you going to help us get there? What changes should we be making? Things like that, so that they're getting the best from the agency, and also that they're making the most of that agency's time. Because I'm sure that you've got clients that are not quite so ideal, mostly because of how they interact with you and don't give you the information that you need in a timely
Mhm.
fashion or at all. And so even in the absence of having an official marketing person, there's some things that you can do well. So I would think that, like I said, asking the questions, making sure you're advocating for your business, make sure that whatever they're doing ties back to what your company goals are, that you're clear on those, that, you're making the most of your investment, and probably asking the question, how can I be a better client? Is
Yeah.
there anything
Yeah.
else you'd add?
Yeah. The one thing I would add, I think you probably feel the same way, is that, so imagine you're hiring somebody. To me, it's a mathematical equation as well.
Mhm.
You're going to hire someone, and let's say they're a lower level person. Maybe they're $30,000 a year, maybe they're 40, whatever it is, right? I know a lot of people even starting in the industry are like 50,000. So just think about those numbers: 50,000, 30,000, 20,000 per year, and then think about, what could I do if that's not the best use of my 20, 30, or $50,000, and I could actually put that into implementing marketing through an agency that can grow with me, or a coach that can grow with me? I think that's a really important question, because again, you can burn money paying somebody to be on your premises that might not be doing the key things that need to be done. So just from a mathematical equation, think that through, because I think the math tells a story as well.
Well, and to go on that math analogy too, is to think about where you are today and where you're going,
Yeah.
and how you need to get there. Because as you grow, it needs to go beyond your point person. needs to go beyond part owner, part, office manager. There, at some point, you need to bring somebody in so that that relationship is able to be maintained in an effective way. Somebody does need to be learning about marketing, and then that gets us into that concept of developing marketing into an asset. And
I love it.
and so I think that's probably where we should wrap this up, because that could open a whole nother discussion there. But so tell us a little bit more, given that, I've invited you on, I want to give you the chance to tell us a little bit about your company and who you serve.
Yeah, so Outsourced Marketing has been around for about 6 years now. I started the business coming out of the corporate world. So I used to wear the corporate marketing hat of the systems, the processes, and the metrics that guided what we did in the large corporate world. That's what I was responsible for, as well as teams. And when I knew I was starting a consulting agency that was for smaller businesses that I'm really passionate about helping, I knew I wanted to bring systematic approach to marketing, that process driven, the metric driven, the analytics driven type methodology in order to help them, because I saw the inherent strengths of that. So I actually looked at maybe creating my own system. I had already heard of duct tape marketing. I looked into it more. And so I've integrated that into my business. And that's a unique part of what I do. The key niches or niches that we serve are we're very, very strong in dentistry, orthodontics, healthcare, and then strangely enough, also in the trade. So though, we do serve other clients across the board, but those are two really core areas that we serve clients and are passionate about it. The other thing that kind of sets us apart is just being very transparent about reporting and being very down to earth, so that because one of the other gaps we saw in the marketplace was baffling people with information tends to be a process that a lot of marketers do. And so we wanted to make sure that we're not just sharing reports that tell a story one way, but that we're actually sharing a very transparent way of saying, this is where you are, this is what you said your goals were, this is how we're getting you there, and this is what happened in the past month.
I love that. Actually, I want to follow up with you on that separately. I think there's something to be shared there. So what are the areas, the tactics that you guys are strongest in?
Yeah, so obviously strategy is really important to us. We have that strategy first philosophy. And then I would say web development, because we've made, when we do our strategies, we understand that in marketing today, your website is kind of the only real estate that you actually own. You don't own your Facebook profile. It can be taken away from you. So we really focus strongly on that. And then out of that has come a very strong core competency of SEO. And then also advertising, because that's a really key way of getting people into your funnel and converting them into customers. So we do a lot of other stuff, but those are, I would say, our strongest areas that we love to deliver on. Yeah.
Okay. And then your ebook, how can people get your ebook? Should I, should I put a link in there here at the end, or, how can
that would be great if you could share a link. I'll share the link with you and you can share it with them. But I would, you're probably similar, Anne, in that we produce information and education for people because we love to help people. And so I would love it if people downloaded the ebook and they found value in it.
Great. And I think it's a great place to start, along with some content that I've got. And obviously, I'm assuming I'm putting words in your mouth that you'd be available to talk to anybody about their marketing, as well as, I am too, to help them find their way. So I thank you so much for joining me, Ian, and I look forward to working more with you and having you back on here sometime soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.